Brian Rowe joins us now from Columbus, Ohio. He's the director of the Ohio State Food Waste Collaborative at Ohio State University. Brian, we just heard these stories about these IDPs. We also just talked about the situation in Tigray. So many people there suffering without food, so much suffering all over. And this comes on the International Day of Awareness of Food Loss and Waste. It's a major problem. Can you talk to us about it?
Yes. Of the food that is planted and harvested globally, anywhere from 1/4 to 40% never actually makes it to its end purpose of being consumed by a human being. So that suggests there are a lot of resources being wasted, not being used to nourish people who are in desperate need across the globe.
And there's another piece to this, which is also being pushed today, which is you reduce food loss and waste. It can also improve planetary health. Can you talk to us about the impact this could have on the environment?
Yes. For example, the food system uses up to 20% of, for example, the United States, our national energy budget, about 50% of our fresh water withdrawals. And then obviously there's plenty of nutrients that are pushed back into water systems and vulnerable ecosystems through that as well. So, and up to 15% of global greenhouse gases are typically related to the food system. So when you go and then waste 1/4 to 40% of that food, it contributes even more to those issues that could be used otherwise.
And Brian, obviously you're steeped in this issue. What are some things that need to change? I mean, what can happen to turn this around?
Yeah, more of a circular view of the food system is really needed, where we think critically about handoffs from one part of the food supply chain to the next, making sure that they're resilient, making sure that we're thinking critically about how to make products available when they might not meet their primary use, to make sure that they're used elsewhere through donation, and then helping consumers to use all the food that they have in their houses, make sure they're buying the right amounts, shopping with a list, making sure that we're using the most of our resources.
You know, that's pretty much primarily dictating policy people. But talk to us about yourself, me. We do go to the grocery stores. We buy way too much. I know in my own case, there's times where I open up the refrigerator, stuff gets pitched that sure looked good in the aisles there at the grocery store, but somehow we didn't eat it. What are some things that individually we can do?
Sure. Yeah, I always tell people to shop your fridge first. There's all sorts of things in a refrigerator that don't get used immediately, and before we go to the store and buy more, we can think about what we have in there, go and shop to work around those items. Shop with a list, make sure you're doing some meal planning so that you're not overly ambitious. Beware of those bulk sales. They might be a little bit cheaper, but if you're then throwing out half of that later, you lose financially because you're not using that, plus much more is going into the landfill.
And Brian, one final question before I let you go. I mean, there's so many issues out there. I just get the sense that this is an issue that gets squeezed, doesn't get as much airplay as it should. How difficult is it for you to get your message across?
Well, I think people connect with it because everybody sees it and everybody can basically do something about it. So it is a very universal message because we're all food consumers. So we can do something about it by thinking critically about our own habits and the habits in our community.
All right, Brian Rowe joining us from Columbus, Ohio. Thanks so much.
My pleasure, Mike.